So we are live. We are just starting the webinar now. We are live on YouTube channel as well. Hello everyone. A very warm welcome to all the esteemed panelists and attendees. Today workshop and training on design and brand building for ceramic industry organized by Trade Promotion Council of India. TPCI, as you are aware, is a trade and investment promotion agency in the country based out of Delhi. The panel of experts hailing from reputed bodies will deliberate upon various topics on leveraging the strength of brand India in global market. From strategy to tactics, building, implementation, managing brand equity will be part of today's deliberation. TPCI member exporters will be joining the session from hailing from ceramic product categories. The workshop will be followed by Q&A session. Keep typing your questions in the chat box. This workshop is supported by MAI scheme of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Joint Secretary EP-CAP Sri Manish Chadda, Department of Commerce, has already delivered his opening keynote address on 8th February on 2022. So this is the series, and we are doing the second one. The third one will be a physical event. Industrial market along argued that brand play little role in the decision-making process. Several macro-level changes have occurred challenging these notions, some of which are reviewed. Today, India is a hotbed of opportunity, has been going through tectonic shift at their interaction of consumerism and entrepreneurship, evoking behavioral patterns that are more than interesting to observe. The problem ever so enticing to solve. The digital space also continues to grow its footprint, and tech-led companies continue to endeavor to build meaningful businesses. Yet 98% of the trade happens offline. But for building the brand, the journey needs to be a kind of reverse engineering to heart, to mind, to wallet, and get to that wallet attempting to survive the race, and conversation become transactional. However, brands take time to build it and grab the market share. For sure, effective brand strategy gives you major edge in increasingly competitive market. Now coming to the ceramic industry, India's ceramic product export in April-November 2021 stood at 1.5 billion USD, which contributed about less than 1% of India's total export. In 5 years, the CGR growth, compounded annual growth rate of the sector, was 13.79% as per the UN Comtrade, which is not bad. The top export destination of Indian ceramic export in 2020 was Saudi Arabia, US, USA, that composed of approximately 30% of the exported value in 2022. The top export ceramic products are unglazed ceramic flags and pavings, refractory bricks, block tiles, and ceramic sinks, wash basins. In order to facilitate export in this segment, export, credit availability, credit building, and knowledge dissemination are the need of the hour to better enable Indian exporter in this segment. So today we have esteemed panel of speakers. If I may name them: Anju Pawar, Discipline Faculty, Ceramic and Glass Design, National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad; Arnotpal Thakur, Visiting Professor, Department of Design, Delhi Technological University, New Delhi, India; Professor Saurabh Vikas Bora, Assistant Professor, Marketing, IIM Ahmedabad; and Pallavi Dondeyal Panthri, Founder and Executive Director, Amigos PR and Communication. Let me invite the first speaker for today, Ms. Anju Pawar, Discipline Faculty, Ceramic and Glass Design, National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, who will be deliberating upon the following area of design: handmade industry with focus on innovation in ceramic in today's context, impact of ceramic innovation in today's lifestyle, need, purpose of innovation, and implementation. Ma'am, over to you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Samir ji, to give me such opportunity to speak about the subject. As I've been teaching ceramics since last 7 to 8 years in a university and now in NID. So my perspective, it is towards more towards an handmade ceramic. So I will be discussing on certain issues and certain prominent products like which are being practiced in handmade sector and their implementation and their end results. So I'll share my presentation now, Samir. Is it okay?
Right, ma'am.
Yes, okay. I am sharing my screen. I hope it's visible to all of you.
Yeah, ma'am, it's visible.
Yes. So ceramic innovation, like it is uh, it is very important to start with the clay because it is directly related to a clay, and as it has a long history, the clay pots, the clay vessels, it's the first vessel, it's the first innovation in context to clay, right, according to me. And what if I relate to the innovation, it is creating a new thing. It's a process of creating new ideas and generating a growth towards a success. Because if there is no innovation, the growth is also going to be stagnant and the success is also going to be restricted. And innovation can be in all the direction. It can be tangible, intangible, in many a ways. It's a thinking process for me, right? It's like there's a way to do it better. Find it, right? That should be the strategy and the philosophy when one working on an innovative act. As in traditional potters has been associated with ceramic, it's been ages, and they've been doing several products and several utility wares and non-utility wares, and and catering to the many area of India and other countries, right? And but since few since last few years, like they've been having a lot of issues in sustaining themselves practicing this craft. So this craft is slowly becoming the danger, and maybe due to this competition with the cheap plastic product which had came into the Indian existence, and is in China product which has like in last few years it's been really like hindering into our Indian market. And as earlier, it was only the terracotta vessels. I think each and every house were using it. Mostly, we all were using it, and due to that, with the less opportunity and less possibility of being a good livelihood over there, the younger generation is not interested in keeping this craft, and they are moving to the other other job prospects to find a better lifestyle. So, in context to that, I would like to discuss few projects which some designers have already worked on it to sustain this craft and to give them a look employments. So this is the Studio based in Auroville. Uh, Architecture is Dharmesh Jadeja. He has uh, he has used this terracotta pots and platters in very innovative way into a ceiling to beat the summer heat, and at the same time he has used the local potters around the Auroville and given them a local employment to sustain them. That's how the potters have been encouraged to make more pots and to make a big money out of that. So this is how and Dharmesh has done several projects with offices and with a unique residence also, and this has created a very good impact on an architectural element also. The another project is like Cool End. I hope you must have aware. This is the Cool End project. It is mainly designed on eco-friendly outdoor cooling system, and Mr. Manish Pura have designed. He's a Delhi-based architect. He's mainly worked onto the eco-friendly products, and he has taken this. He is inspired by the traditional water cooling system that has been we've been using it since ages, I guess, in India. So it is a very low cost and have used traditional methods with minimum technology, and it consumes very less energy. So his design is inspired by this beehive structure, and he have used long terracotta pots. He have hired a few terracotta potters in Uttamnagar in near Delhi, and he had given them employment. He made more than this beehives is made more than 100 terracotta pots together. Material has been used steel, terracotta, and water, and a pump to recirculate the water. So the system works like that. The water falls from this terracotta pipes, and because of that cooling system absorbing water, the winds which comes from the factory which is this is installed into a factory which is like there's a diesel near. You can see this yellow uh, cabinet. It's a diesel and it's throwing a lot hot air. So due to that, the workers were getting very disturbed, and it was affecting on their health. So this cooling system has given them at least 20 to 25% of a heat reduction, and it does not contain electricity also, not much electricity also. And this is their another project that they have done in the inter outdoor system as an art installation. At the same time, this was also working as a eco cooling systems. And in the area of brick, in the area of brick, like if I take it as if that there's a simple brick which is made by a traditional potters or industry. Like I would like to show the journey of building blocks, like right from the very simple terracotta bricks to the perforated bricks, through the blocks, innovative blocks, and contemporized designer block, right, which have architect have used in a spatial urban living in a very effective way. And these blocks are oftenly made by designed by designers and artists, and made by artisans, all with the industry. So this is a very good amalgamation of industry and craft sector, what I believe. And craft tiles is like this is another very important area uh, of a combination of handmade sector and industry. But I feel that handmade tiles is made with such very made very simply with a simple slab and certain pattern on a tile, on a surface. So it has started with that, with the hand painted thing, or some of them with the played around with the very plain colors, very striking colors and on. And later on, they have started giving a two-dimensional to the three-dimensional surface to it, and again really high relief to it, which has been used very effectively in today's architecture. So these tiles are made handmade tiles. They are regular flat color styles, and they have taken in the place of regular very flat color industrial tiles, and they have created a really good impact on contemporary living. These tiles, they look like a handmade. Many a tiles, they are not totally handmade tiles. They are made in a collaboration with an industry in hydraulic press. But the treatment of a glaze and a surface which has been given nowadays throughout all these years, they give a look and feel of a handmade, and which has a very good and very big sectors and in today's living, and it has a real good market nowadays. A lot of interior designers and architects are using these tiles as an handmade tiles in today's constructions. As a journey of basin, if we see, like the basin has started with a very basic concept of washing hands, and in today's, you can see that concept has become a status of life. The journey has arrived to such a place whereby the industry can mark double, right? The profit is double, the production is double. That's what I say, that it has become now a status of symbol. This is an industrial exploration or industrial revolution in basin, and this is in handmade sector. Handmade basin, it's I think since last 2 decades, it's been very popular in architects and interior designers. Earlier, they have started with making a tradition with the traditional potters and things like that. But later on, the industry has picked up this handmade basin. They look handmade. They give feel, they make it in a such a way that the look and feel is it's an handmade, but it has been produced in an industry in a bulk. So that has also created a good impact in our living. And this is a truly handmade basin, which I can say, because this is made by me, and this is for one of the interior project which I have made in last few years. So and role of artist, if I talk about, there's one artist, Rakhi Kane, again, Auroville base. Auroville is known for the ceramic. A lot of artists are makes works in a different areas. So here Rakhi has made one art installation inspired by a Jaipur architecture, and it had created, and here she had played with a very nice light and shadow, and had created this is done in a ceramic, high fired ceramic, and it's a very good example of an architectural element. And as I talked earlier about the tiles, that the look and feel of a glaze and a surface is being given as an handmade. It would look like a handmade. So these are the few glaze explorations which has been made, which are been made and explored for for a handmade pottery. These are my explorations, and which I have created a palette for a handmade production. And these are few special surface treatment which has been done with a certain technique of firing technique. And there are few industry, the small tile industry, they are also using this technique to make a high categorized tiles, and they are actually into a market. So these are some special firing things, and these are the miniature. This here from here I would like to share some of my work. These are few products which it's been designed by me, and it has been produced by a rural women's in nearby studio. So here the various forms has been depicted in a different gestures and different expressions with different colors and different surfaces. So these are mainly as a home decor product, and it goes very well with the home decor and interior space. And it has a very specific market and with a very specific buyers for it. Here it's a mainly a play with the particular forms, its expressions, its surface, its treatment, and later on it is with a small utility. Now, if we see the utility part of it, that at the natural form enhance the contemporary lifestyle with the beauty of natural forms and handmade touch to it. And at the same way, if we see the tableware, handmade tableware, so these are truly handmade tableware products. Some more tableware products with the different kinds of feel and texture, and these are some functional jars which has been done in a natural form of a birds, and very beautiful treatment has been done on a surface with the different kinds of a glaze and a surface. And here it's a very different project. Till here I was talking about the conventional handmade ceramic and the things which has been doing it since it's in market, and it's been in a demand in a handmade sector. Here this was the challenge project which I have gotten one one project from corporation to create a ceramic circle. Like in a city, there are small circles they've been allotted. So we've been allotted a ceramic. There's one circle which we have to do it with the ceramic. So here I have taken. We have made a floating stones. These are stones which is made out of ceramic and which actually floats. So uh, it was a challenge because generally ceramic is always been considered it is a very heavy, very thick. It can't float, right? So here have taken a challenge, and we have made the stones which had actually float on the water, right? It requires a lot of trial and error, and we had trial with the different forms, different structures, and different thickness, and different shapes and size. And with very precise and certain skills, we could make some stones, and the stones are generally around. at around 6 to 8 inch to 2 feet and 2.5 feet big stones, and they literally float on a water. But unfortunately, that circle couldn't happen. That circle got cancelled from the corporation, and we couldn't install that. So, on based on that principles, I have come up with a range of floaters as a product. So here I have taken that learning as a concept, and that concept I have created into some water creatures, and it had created a very good impact on a handmade site as an innovative product. In reference of light, there are a few more innovative products, more handmade touch to it, played around with different forms and material here. And this is all my productions. I've been training rural women, and they I used to teach them, and they this was the production methods, totally handmade methods, and they used to produce this kind of such product. And the actually, it's a batch production. I cannot say it's an industrial production, because batch production is always done in a small number, maybe in hundreds, or maximum it's in 500. It cannot go in tons like an industry, right? So this way, this was the handmade sector production, but there are each product has a very uniqueness into it. Maybe little difference in expression, maybe in a surface, maybe in a size, maybe in a look and a feel. So that's where the handmade industry, it is very peculiar, and it has its own identical expression and identity into the handmade sector. And it's in a continuous process to me. I'm still learning, I'm still teaching students over here. And as an ceramist, like we are practicing this since long, and still would like to practice. It's a continuous process from my side. It's done from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anju Pawar. It
Yeah.
was great to see such a aesthetic, beautiful ties in your work, and
Thank you.
how industry is collaborating, and how it is pitching for the new
Yes.
product, and the role of innovations in designing, and how important it is. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
presentation, ma'am.
Thank you, Samirji. Thank you.
So uh, now may I introduce our second speaker, who is from just a second.
Mr. Push,
Yes, sir. Yes.
you were introducing our second speaker.
Yeah. Just a second, sir. There is some problem with the network. Just excuse me for this. Yes, we got connected again. Sorry for that. Yeah. Am I audible? Yeah. So there was some glitch. Now I'm back to the webinar. May I please introduce Mr. Arunottam Pal Thakur, Visiting Professor, Department of Design, Delhi Technological University, New Delhi. So earlier this Delhi Technological University was very popular and it was called Delhi College of Engineering. It's still very sought after institute in Delhi NCR. So sir will be taking us through the branding and design part of the deliberation during his day. So over to you, Mr. Thakur.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, Mr. Push, for inviting me for the webinar. And thanks to all the attendees as well. I'm really honored to share this panel with all these, learned people who know about the industry a lot more than me. My background is very different. Before becoming a teacher, I've spent more than 25 years in fashion industry, working in Europe and Far East. So that is where I picked up, or my experience has been what branding and what design can do to a product, as well as how it can really make the business seem so much more interesting. I was just before this webinar a couple of days back, I was looking at the place of ceramics within Indian industry and in the Indian ceramic industry in the world in a context of the globe. Now, from what I can make out, India is somewhere around 7th or 6th largest ceramic producer in the world. But if somewhere to ask outside this country, I don't know, even within this country, when you think of ceramics or if you think of porcelain, what name comes to your mind? In the tiles, maybe Kajarias or the Somanis or those kind of names would come to your mind. But in porcelain, what would come to your mind? And remember, we must remember, difference between porcelain and ceramic is not so much. They are not so different, except that you're using finer clay and a higher temperature to get porcelain. I used to live in Spain, and where I used to live, nearby there is a organization or a brand based for a good 100 years from a small, I would call it a village, and the brand name is Yadro. I don't know how many on the panel or amongst the attendees know of the brand Yadro. It's a very, very expensive porcelain, right? And I was talking to them, I think way back in 2004 or 5, when they were planning to open in India. They did such a good, they had such a good understanding of the Indian market. Their little Krishna idols and, all those kind of idols. They sell for a price, which I'm not sure, I think it's 35 to 50,000 rupees for a very small piece. Now, why is it that Yadro can come into India and sell its figurine in porcelain at such a high price? And Indian ceramic industry, which has been in existence at least for 100 years as an industry, as an art, it has been there for, like Ms. Power had just explained, we've been making pots and potteries for a very, very long time. So either we have missed something or we have not focused our attention to what really should be done. Our, artisans are in penury. Some of the companies have become volume producers, but if you went outside the country and asked for a particular brand from India, you would find it very, very hard to kind of name one, right? So for building brands, and I know we've got professors from IIMs and people who've been, my own understanding of how you build brands is, one is your textbook definition of what Philip Kotler probably wrote in his Principles of Marketing. But first you need to understand, I'll just share a couple of slides if that's okay with you guys, okay?
Yes, sir. You may please.
I hope you can see this, right?
Yes.
So when you are trying to sell something, there are very few simple questions. When you're making a particular product or as a business, questions you need to ask is, why do you exist? What makes you different? Are you trying to solve a problem? And whatever solution you provide, why should people care? So when you're trying to build a brand, one is obviously you see a need in the marketplace, or you think you've got something which will help people or solve their problems. At the same time, it needs to have an identity. What is so different you have that is not available to somebody else, or somebody else is not providing it? And then you have to find a way where you can connect, your solution connects emotionally to the people who are going to buy your product. If you are not able to answer these questions in a very focused and succinct way, you are going to struggle. So, I'm not big on, giving you big presentations, because people are from industry, they've all studied. So I'm not here to give you Philip Kotlers of this world. But what I would, based on, because I teach things like design thinking and design management. So if you're trying to create a brand, I'll just give you a small anecdote before I go on to my next slide. In 1957, when Toyota exported its first car to the United States, people at Ford and General Motors looked at it and said, these guys will never be able to make a car. It's like a matchbox with 4 wheels. That was 1957. Today, Toyota is the largest manufacturer and seller of vehicles in the world. If you want to come up with a brand which is strong, which resonates with users and more people want to have it, you have to have a long-term planning. Another thing is that your organization, every touch point your company, your product has with people who will use it or who will see it, there needs to be a consistency in terms of message. If you don't believe it, your consumers will not believe it. You want to cut a shortcut, go ahead, do it, but you'll never have a strong brand. Now, something which Ms. Pawar just pointed out, that small lot batches, and so every product is unique. That is absolutely correct. Because what you're doing is that you're making unique products when you're doing small batches and by hand. Now, you can try and create a brand where every product is unique, but then you will have very tough time trying to make it mass market. In fashion industry, what we have is what we call haute couture, which is, people, the companies make 25 pieces of each style, because they are very expensive, because they are unique products made by hand, and so there are very few takers for them. But then they have another line called pret-a-porter, which is ready to wear. Now that they can make in a slightly bigger volume because it is much more standardized. So as a company, you need to first figure out what you are good at. You're good at unique products, or you want to be in the mass market. So you need to have clarity in your own head, then only your message will have clarity. So those are the few things I think one must have, because when I look at even, let's say, tiles, okay, tile manufacturing. Now, Kajaria is number 8 in the world. There are 7 bigger ones than Kajaria. Mohawk, which is an American company. Now, how is it possible that something like tiles, which is obviously made of clay, but because it is completely automatized, they can make it in States and be the largest manufacturer and still be profitable? Whereas in a country like India, we are not able to do. But mind you, in terms of tile manufacturing, China is still the largest. And China is ahead by India by about 50%, if I go by 2020 data. So there is a lot of room for the industry to grow, number one. There's a lot of work which needs to be done in order to get the branding right. And now everybody cannot be a brand player. Some might want to be in the mass volume playing where the cost is the driving factor. But you may want to, because you've got volume, you may want to create a brand like Toyota created Lexus. It did not get a luxury brand under the name of Toyota, or cheaper, or trying to make something cheaper because you are already luxury. So Mercedes does not sell smart cars under Mercedes brand. So one needs to be very, very particular, and that is where I mentioned that you need to have clarity in your own business as to what you want to be. Because today, if you want to look for technology, you can get it. There are enough large companies in this country who can buy the technologies that is required to make standard high value products. But you need to be very, very clear, because then you can articulate it, you can have clear messaging. So coming to my next slide, I am not big on this, but you need to build a narrative around your brand. Without narrative, nothing will work. So I picked up 4 names from the ceramic industry worldwide. I don't know how many of you know about this Limoges porcelain, which comes from the town of Limoges in France. They are known for, I have mentioned it, so I don't want to read it for you, but dazzling white, luminous hue and intricacies of its hand-painted decorations. Okay. Now, these are all, late 19th, early 20th century, mostly 19th century they have started. Again, same artisans from the same place, from the same town of Limoges. And they used to do these things. And over a period of time, they have created an identity for themselves. You want to buy a Limoges porcelain, it will cost you 10,000 euros. Or, I'm sure most of you know this, Noritake. It's a Japanese porcelain. But it has a factory in Sri Lanka. I think in 2001, I bought a complete dinner set. And, again, it started somewhere in late 18th or early 19th century. Now, again, they're called porcelain, but the basic technology is not so different, whether you're making, tiles or ceramics or, porcelain. It's just the quality of the clay and kind of pressure and temperature. Another name is Konig. Now, Konig, all of us know the name, but Konig Ceramic is a name actually. They don't make a lot of, let's say, porcelain for dinner tables, but they make a lot of stuff from ceramics for industrial products. And obviously Yadro. So as an industry or as an individual businesses, why is it that somebody like Yadro or Noritake, who sell in this country over the counter, they can charge whatever the price because they have a brand. They have a narrative behind the brand. And because that narrative has an emotional connect, and it is fulfilling, because when people buy brands, it is not about fulfilling their basic needs. It is fulfilling their basic desires. So it is not even first, it is almost a second degree. If you went into the theories of Maslow of needs and desires and whatnot, you have to aesthetics, emotional connect, absolute built narrative over a period of time with absolute consistency in whatever you do as an organization, as a business. All the touch points the consumers or your stakeholders have with your company, with your product. The message has to be consistent and exactly what you want to portray. It's like when I teach here, bachelor's and master's people in design. When you are asked or a question is posed to you and you have to explain in 10 lines, that means you do not know exactly what you want to say. If you know what you want to say, you'll be able to say it in 2 lines. When you are very, very articulate and you are absolutely succinct, ambiguity has no place. You write a page, different people will interpret differently. You write 2 lines, you write 2 words, people cannot interpret differently. So your narrative, your messaging has to be absolutely crystal clear. And what you're trying to say is what is being received. Okay? And there are no shortcuts. So I don't really want to take a lot of your time because I am much more a person from the industry. So I like interaction a lot more than trying to, give my peace of mind to all of you. That really doesn't help. But what I am trying to explain to you is that, but there's a saying that it's only a problem if you can't find a solution. Otherwise, it's a process to reach to the desired objective. So once you've clear on your desired objective, then you need to work out the process. And then you need to be focused, consistent, and absolutely what you call steadfast, that this is where we are going. If that was not the case, you would not have seen iPhones. Okay, the guy drove himself and his company to create a complete, chamber, what you call echo chamber for Apple products. People who buy iPhones or Apple products, most of them will buy only Apple products. People who use iPhones, you don't see them buying any other brand generally. And that is the kind of loyalty through good branding exercise you can develop. It's doable, it's possible, you just need to put your mind to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Thakur. It was indeed very motivating kind of deliberation which you have given. You have to question yourself, understand why you're into a business. And the message is clear that create a narrative and to get the audience and the consumer emotionally connected, we have to keep on enforcing the quality and the other aspect of your product sustainably. Thank you so much, sir, for your
Thank you.
presence. Please wait. We will. I have to personally ask you many questions.
Okay, no problem.
So may I now introduce our next speaker, Mr. Saurabh, Professor Saurabh Vikas Bora, who is Assistant Professor Marketing at IIM Ahmedabad, and he will be speaking upon the brand building in the new in the digital age, which is the very trending thing, and every brand has to keep tuned with the digital presence. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. Please continue.
Thanks, Samir. So I will just pick up where I think Mr. Thakur has left, and I'll just pick up from there. So what had changed over a period of time in terms of the world of branding, right? So previously, from earlier days where brand used to create those narratives, they're becoming, and those narratives are now created by people themselves. So the easy way to say look at is basically what I say in many cases, right? We don't need to watch news to know about the news, because everybody with a camera can produce news. So your traditional channels, which used to dominate, where brands used to have a lot of control over the narratives, that controls are slowly getting loosened up. So in a sense that many a times you as a brand may want to say something, but people may want to say entirely different things about you. And therefore, what happened because of that reason, in many places, brands started getting talking to consumers, getting engaged with consumers, and started doing things through which they can promote a narrative. Now, the narrative is also very dynamic. So this entire idea of heroes and villains, right? Our heroes and villains kept on changing. And these days, it's kept on changing very fast. So brand today, which is a hero, tomorrow may be entirely a villain. And that kind of keeps on happening. And there are like multiple examples that one might cite from real world to kind of suggest that this keeps on happening, right? At one point, Volkswagen was caught cheating when they fudged the data in terms of emission norms. And then at another point, Volkswagen may come up with a great design and people may again wow about Volkswagen again. So the challenge now has shifted from what we used to call firm-generated content to a user-generated content, and that's where your digital marketing comes into picture. So entire purpose of digital marketing is to get data from multiple different sources through which consumers may interact with a brand. Now, where do consumers interact with a brand? And typically industries which are on the industrial side, right? Generally are less sensitive about this issue as compared to somebody who is a more consumer-facing role. So brands interact you in multiple forums. Brands interact you in a complaint website. So they might go something like a mouthshut.com and start talking garbage about you, start writing, oh my goodness, this is a terrible brand. I just bought this product and this is what happened. Facebook is one way that they might interact. Now, Instagram is another way they might interact. Twitter is another place where people interact. And LinkedIn is another place where they might interact with you. So the interaction is now on multiple different facets. So a good brand should be able to optimize at all these different platforms. Now, if I look at actually when you invited me and I started looking at the ceramic industry and the major players in the industry, I see exactly the same content across websites. and virtually absolutely no level of engagement. Okay, and one might say, oh, you know what? We produce just tiles. You know what do tiles or all this? So what kind of engagement do we expect? Well, if you will be surprised to know that one of the most engaging companies internally is called a company called Marksline. Marksline actually is a container company. It just takes sea containers, big sea containers from one place to another. A beautiful web page, very well connected Instagram page. Twitters are used to kind of engage with press and media. A very effective way to also engage with your investors. So if you look at over a period of time, so the way you kind of way you kind of assess that how close you are to your customer is one of the metrics is your when there is some kind of a shock in the market, how does your stocks react? That's one of the kind of a direct implication of how close you are engaged with your customer. So if you're very engaged, one would assume that, you know, even if the world goes for a toss, investors might still have some kind of a positive feeling about it. So that is the idea. And if you look at all this ceramic industry, all the big Kajarias of the world, so Manis of the world, you don't see that often. In fact, any shock, these prices comes down, tumbling down, okay, tumbling down, and that essentially the implied that, you know, the consumer franchisee is not very strong. I'll give you an opposite example from some very different industry, paint industry, right? Asian Paints, oil prices skyrocketed after Ukraine attack. Asian Paints share prices stable, okay, nothing changed. So that means even into oil price, which is the key ingredient, when it goes up, markets believe that Asian Paints will be able to pass on the increase in cost to the customer. And why would customer accept it? And because that's the only brand, the paint brand that you want to have in your house or wherever you want to apply. So a good brand has to get to that level. Now, that is the philosophical understanding. Now, how do you get to that level? Like, how do you engage with customers? Okay. One of the very easy way to engage with customers that I have seen many companies start doing is basically bring customers in the customization process. So rather than building products by yourself, same product, you don't need to change anything on the product, you don't need to change anything on the processes, but engage customers in brand in terms of production processes. So for example, if you are kind of building a teapot, why don't you call some customers in, customers who are influential enough to kind of float down the world, and make them a part of the entire experience. So you are no longer be a part of the final product, but you know, you also are part of the design process. Like ma'am was showing that there are like multiple young women who are in the villages are kind of creating all these different beautiful products. Now I was very excited, and I would love to be a part of a process where I go and create something. It may be small, and I may not be a biggest influencer, so therefore I may not be the right person to engage. But there are multiple influencers within your customer segment that you need to engage. Now, that's the way to build brand when it comes to this kind of industry. This is an industry, apart from the experience, aesthetic, everything, it also clearly is an experiential good. One of the major reasons why people buy it is the origin effect. So basically, French wines, right? So why do people want to drink French wine? Why people are so crazy about it? Is because they have somehow branded the origin. Now, we have a rich history, but our branding of history is very poor. So we haven't been able to convince people in terms of our brand of history. So the way to compete with all the Chinese product, new age, this thing is to create some kind of an origin branding. So, my entire idea, the way I look at it, is basically creating engagement with customers. Now, I have seen also that the brand building exercises most of the ceramic manufacturers have done, and most of the way they have tried to brand themselves. And so, what I find very interesting is that their branding revolves around technical quality and sometimes highly emotional appeals. Okay, so emotional appeals. If you have seen the ads of Kajaria tiles, it's kind of very clear. It appeals to your nationalistic instinct. So it will say that it's a tiles from India, so why don't you buy it? Okay. People do give premium for nationalistic brands. There is no doubt about it, but up to a level. After that point in time, people become extremely rational when it comes to start taking toll on your pocket. So one would start thinking that there is no attempt by all these manufacturers to kind of create some kind of a customer engage with customers. So my entire idea is that you need to kind of start engaging with customer and optimize your portfolio of different engagement tools. So the first tool where a consumer might get engaged with you is basically your web page. Now, how is your web page look like? Is it primarily a web page is designed primarily from consumer's perspective or a manufacturer perspective? Much of the exporters in India, and ceramic is no exception, their web pages look like they are trying to give information that we are a great company. Okay, that's across. Okay, so there's not one industry criticism that I make. Most of them has the similar kind of challenge, and that primarily happens because most of these industries has a legacy. So they have come from somebody has started after independence, their legacy has continued, and then legacy gets reflected in the digital platform. Contrary to that, if you start looking at great companies, their web pages are always designed keeping in mind the customer. Now, who may visit my web page? Who are those customers who have visited the web page? Once they visit, is there a place to engage with me? So, for example, in many of the great companies I have seen there, and I was a part of a couple of consulting projects with some companies, where in the web page, we also put the designer's small video, which tells the designer's story, right? What is that? Why the designer has created this particular product and the designer's story, and also given them a chance to interact with the designer on this kind of a forum. It's a weekend discussion with designer, okay? So therefore, it may be 10 people, maybe 15 people, that is fine, but I want them to engage. And the reason is basically simply this. For any experiential consumption, there are people who are called connoisseurs, who kind of have the taste of the product, who understand the segment, who knows the differences, okay? But they are very few. They are very, very few. The most of the masses that you want to target finally, you want masses at least, even if you are a luxury brand, you want some of the mass. So that mass that you want, right? You need to train them and appreciate this kind of a design. So the step one is to create a platform which has multiple touch points for engagement. Now, I don't see that in most of the companies, and this is primarily because they themselves feel that they are not the one who is their customers are not there. For example, when I interact with most of the exporters, that's one thing they will always tell me. Oh, my customers do not care about this. So that's the first thing that needs to be changed. Second, every internet-based platform is different. Your Instagram should be used for a very different reason as compared to Twitter. Nobody in Twitter cares that you have opened up a new showroom. Nobody cares. Twitter is a platform if you want to engage your investors, if you want to engage press and media, that's the platform that you use for that. You don't use Twitter to kind of a customer acquisition tool. So most of the time I see the same, we have opened up a showroom, very good, I'm happy for you, but why should I care? So because that's not where I go to see your showroom. Now you can do it in Facebook, that makes sense, that you are talking about how your network has kind of developed. So therefore what one would assume that has not gone through, that is second. The third, and I think it's the most important one, is the availability of data. Now, I don't find, and most of these legacy companies, one of the problem is they don't collect enough data. So for example, if I go to your web page, before even logging in, most of the US manufacturing sites will ask you one question. Can I get your email ID? Okay. And can you fill up 5 questions for me? What are those 5 questions? Very simply this. Why are you here? There are 5 options. You just select one. How old are you? Okay. Are you married or single? So just one point. Is it the first time you have visited? What are they doing? They're trying to map you in a certain kind of a profile, which essentially somebody will say it's a segmentation, but it may be also called personalization or customization. So the second thing that you need to do is to collect data from customer. Now, once I get your mobile phone and once I get your ID, I can map you as a consumer. Now, what are the different mapping organizations have done? There are organizations who not only know that you have been what you are posting on your Facebook, they know what you are doing on your Instagram, and they know what you are looking at in Twitter and what kind of consumption habit that you have. Now, that is what I call a complete engagement. Now, once you know everything, it helps you to proactively understand your consumer better. Now, if you want to go to, let's say, a market, let's say Europe, right? And you know, in Europe, you want to do your business. You are competing with global players, and probably quality-wise, you are probably not bad. You are probably good, you know. But from perspective of engagement, you are poor. Now, why do you need engagement? Is very simply this: the truth is, and that you have to know, there is no harm accepting it, that China will always produce product at a lower cost than you can. Okay, so until unless you accept that fact, then it's very difficult to kind of go ahead from there. So first thing, we know they will be cheap. So we can't just compete in that market so that we get bulldozed in that market. So we have to play a different game. And in my mind, and that's what I always tell whenever I meet exporters, in my mind, I always tell them, if you want to beat China, do not play their game. You play the game of quality and you play the game of engagement. Now, we have a better chance of engaging people, primarily because of our culture and the legacy that we have in terms of our product and services that we produce, and in ceramic is more exceptional. So this is the third step. So the first step, again, I repeat, the first step is your website, optimizing your website so that customer engagement can be assessed. Second, use different platform for different purposes. Do not post everything one system, one content across platform, nobody is interested. And the third is basically kind of start collecting data. Okay, start collecting data about your customers, and of course with their own permission, because you should not be collecting data if they do not give you permission. But most customers are kind of quite okay sharing basic details about them. That will help you to profile. If you do these three things, then you are in a better position to kind of build a brand. Otherwise, your brand building exercise will be more consumer perspective, and simply in the digital world, from the producer perspective, simply in the digital world, producer perspective doesn't work. It doesn't matter what a news organization wants to tell me about the world, because my source of information is YouTube. And there are multiple different videos that are getting uploaded every day, and that becomes the news for me. So therefore, what you have to do, you have to appreciate the fact that news has been democratized. Many people with cameras can produce news. Thus, your brand building also needs to be democratized. So therefore, I think these are the three major points I would like to highlight and point out to these people as they want to go along and build different brands across the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bora, for such an intuitive address, and hope many the brands will realize that you need to play the game of quality and engagement to sustain in market and be competitive, and just don't complain about the cost competitiveness of China. So keep on focusing on quality, optimizing the other things which Mr. Bora has suggested, like optimizing your website, increase your engagement, and then of course collect the good data which can be utilized for the other purposes. Thank you so much, sir, for your presence. Now the fourth speaker in the panel, STEAM panel, is Mr. Pallavi Dondal Panchal. She is the founder and executive director of Amigos PR and Communication. She was earlier a media person who was working with Bennett Coleman Group and has worked for TOI and ET as business editors. During her address, she will be deliberating upon the few of the areas like why brand building is important, what role PR and communication can play, and the concept of brand equity, and how does it help to increase the brand recall and sustainability, brand strategy and its implications, etc. So may I now call Pallavi to take over, please?
Yeah, thank you so much, Samir, for this lovely opportunity, and feel great to be, amongst the esteemed panelists today. So, as Samir said, I will be talking about branding, and along with branding, why PR is important, and how twinning both branding and PR can help in creating and making presence of a product felt. So which is very important. Yeah, unique identity is very important for a product, and for that branding needs to happen, which could be just about a symbol, a mark. It could be just a logo, name, word, or sentence, or a slogan. I mean, we know how slogan actually works, so we know what Coke's slogan is all about. So yeah, slogans do make an impact. Yeah, so taste is feeling. Yeah, so that's there. So yeah, definitely a branded product survives longer than any undifferentiated product. So branding is important, and how it can be worked in a better way with PR. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I will share a PPT just to stay focused. Yeah, so it's visible, right?
Yeah, it's visible.
Great.
Continue.
So PR for brand visibility, what is PR, why PR for a brand, how we do it needs to be understood. I'm sure most of us are aware of public relations and how we establish a connect between a brand and its target audience. That is all done through PR along with branding. So yeah, like I just said, that branding a product is all about identity, and we need to differentiate our product with others, and that happens only through branding. But when we do PR, we actually bring value addition to the entire marketing and advertising exercise. It's just like we are giving wings to the whole exercise, so that whatever efforts we are doing, we are able to lend that credibility to the brand. So which we see in all the big brands cases, whether it is Netflix or IKEA or Coca-Cola, Pepsi, whatever it is. So they all follow sustained PR campaigns, which are a must for long-term visibility. So what is brand equity actually, and what are the elements and how PR fits in there? Brand equity, we all know that, what is the worth that our brand is having, which we get to know by understanding whether people are aware of it, whether people are able to associate with the brand or not, what is the perceived quality, are they being loyal to the brand, what about the other brand assets like patents and all. So all these things, when we do through branding, how we actually establish and add on to it, establish and add on in terms of credibility. Are we able to really build a recall value? We do see ads while driving on the road, so many things we see in terms of hoardings and all. But we still have this doubt that is this particular brand which has come up, or this new product which has come under a company, is it going to be a success or not? So the credibility is measured when we see some media news. Yeah, so media insertions do help lending credibility to brands. So this is something which is very common, especially with Indian PR industry. Although it's quite unlike what happens in the West, PR industry is mostly related with media coverage only. So we actually call it a perfect marketing storm when we are able to link our brand, with PR, especially for instance, we have launched a product, and the product is there, like I said, hoardings are there and all, and we see a press release coming in the paper along with the advertisements. So it's like 360-degree communication is happening for a brand. which actually helps any brand build or develop positive perceptions. And this is something which actually gives any brand advantages over advertising, I'll say, whether in terms of timeliness. So anytime we can generate a news, it's about adaptability, credibility, cost efficiency, and mobility also. So we all know how the consumption of news has changed. So anything we want to understand or know about any particular product, we just go on to Google, search news, and get to know that what a particular subject is all about. So I will just stay very crisp so that we have more time to have questions being answered if there are many going forward. So we know that big companies have got big budget, and that's why they not just do branding, advertising, marketing size, but along with that they do PR also. So most of them have their own PR departments also, and some hire PR so that more focus is brought into it. So their departments are known as corporate communication departments, and they tie up with any PR agency, and that's how the entire communication is done. So when we talk about medium and small scale enterprises, especially as we are talking about the ceramic industry, and most of them, they are falling into this category. If we see, only like earlier panelists also said that it's just few big brands which are being talked about, Somani, Kajaria, and we don't really listen about other brands. So there are big brands also which perhaps which don't do PR or much branding. Maybe they don't think that much of energy and efforts are required for them because they're already established in the market. However, if I come back to MSMEs, I think it's very important that their marketers, they put enough thought and efforts into their brand, and here PR can actually help. Because if you think that we don't have resources, I don't think it's right, because if we can have resources for advertising, we have to market our product, because without marketing, our product is not going to sell. So if we set aside even 10% of the budget for PR, I think our value actually doubles. So effective branding with PR can be really scaled to benefit any business's budget, no matter what the size of the company is. So it's very important that we are differentiated in terms of our product, and we know that how we are having an edge when it comes to competition. So this edge can only be defined by your branding exercise along with PR. Like one of the panelists was also mentioning. I think it was Arundhati Palji who was talking about building a narrative around any brand. So we do build narrative, but the narrative go only in the form of advertisement and all. How we build that narrative in a story form, because our consumers, our customers, they want to really understand what is the whole story behind this particular product, how the emotional this connection is being built. So that is all which any creative person at a PR agency will be adept to handle. So here I'll just take a small example of Morbi cluster in Ahmedabad. The cluster is called to be one of the largest clusters of the world for ceramic industry, especially tiles. But how many of us actually know about it? And it is something which needs to be really brought on the world map, which if we talk about masses are not really aware. So how do we actually build brand for it. It's something, because the cluster is there, the association is there, everybody can put in efforts and put in their resources to really create a brand for themselves. It's very important. So I'm just here defining how a PR how any PR engagement can help here. The cluster is age old, and it has a lot of socio-economic issues being attached to it. So a lot of impact stories can be done. Yeah, like when Anjuji started to said, she was talking about the traditional potters. So many traditional people are still there, but now working in the tile industry. So how their livelihood has changed. Have you ever heard stories like that? There could be one or two of you, but on sustained basis, if we talk about such kind of initiatives, they need to be really brought onto the global map, which can happen only through sustained communication exercise. And here PR really comes in handy. So we can really talk about sustainable practices. Why I'm talking about sustainable practices? Because ceramic tile industry, it actually adds to environment pollution. Yeah. So this is, and how we are bringing in things where we are only doing practices in a sustainable way. They need to be really highlighted. So what are the challenges? What are the current trends which are happening? Solutions that we can see, and what could be the way forward? Because we are seeing that we are actually estimating that this particular industry is actually going to touch, I think, $289 US billion by 2029. So which is going to be a real, which is a big dream, I must say. And talking about what India can contribute is very important. So this is all I would like to say in terms of what PR can say. And if I talk about why a PR needs to be higher, I would just say that it comes quite easy to pocket, unlike any advertising exercise, and it actually gives you credibility, because when media talks about it, talks about any initiative, people tend to understand that, okay, there is something which is genuinely associated with a particular brand or a company. There's just one last slide which I would like to share. So this is a slide which talks about the reputation roadmap with PR Beat. Even a small company or a startup which has just started, it starts with apathy, where people are really not interested about knowing about you. But with PR exercise, we are able to create awareness. Then we are able to generate momentum, and people tend to recognize us. So it's not just about the masses, but even media, because when we do regular feeders with media, they tend to recognize us. Then the masses are our target audience. They start to appreciate us. Trust is built. And with trust, respect also comes in. And once the respect is established, I think we start to advocate. Yeah. So this is where the brand loyalty comes in, and we actually become a cult figure at last. So thank you so much, Samir, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Pallavi, for this nice presentation and the need for 360-degree communication approach, and how connecting with the consumer through media channels, PR, is really important for sustained brand positioning in the market, which might be a value to add value to any business. Thank you so much. And this is now time to take the questions one by one. So the first question has to be answered by Ms. Anuj Pawar. In the countries outside India, terracotta planters for plants are sold at quite high prices, even basically gamlas. But we don't see them coming from India. They are from the European countries like Poland, Italy. Are the planters in need of quality upgrade in terms of the strength, design, and or branding? How can we start to export our terracotta and ceramic planters on a large scale?
I guess our traditional potters are not exposed to the export market directly, but there are few vendors, like there are few exporters, they do approach to the traditional potters and they collect the pots and they do sell it. And now there are some industries also, they have started producing a terracotta pots and other product in terracotta. And they do direct export also, or maybe they must be doing some exports through some channels or some organization. And we talk about, if we talk about the quality and strength, so terracotta has its own limitation, and if it is produced in a craft sector, so they have a limitation of kiln, limitation of material, and the production process also. If it has been produced in a factory, so then quality check and other things can be taken over. That's what I feel about this question.
Right, ma'am. Thank you. On behalf of the industry, ma'am, may I know if NID offers any service to industry for designing
Yes,
part?
yes, NID do offer.
So is it chargeable or what?
We have just from institute, there are certain guidelines which industry has to follow.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll get
Mr.
back to
Posh,
you, sir.
Mr. Posh, just one intervention I wanted to make regarding the export of, gamlas and things like that. Most of people who are exporting to European Union should be aware by now that given the new budget which European Union has started from this year, the 10-year cycle has started, 7-year cycle has started from this year. How much carbon you generate in making your product, that amount of taxation will be levied for putting that product in European Union market. So if you compare the regulations between, say, an Italian or any European Union manufacturer, if you are not meeting those stringent criteria, then your product, however good it may be, it will incur an extra cost.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this update. And I know EU and US norms are pretty stringent. Even in the food sector, they have come up with the Codex standards. So those who don't comply, their product doesn't fit in that market. So let us move to the next question, which is directed towards Mr. Professor Bora. Is it true that brands and product complement each other? Sometimes brand value is high, but product acceptability over the period of time is low. Hero has become villain over the period of time, but the brand value remained high.
So sometimes due to legacy, your brand value might still continue. But then if you do not continually rejuvenate, then the brand kinds of goes for a toss. So while you might feel that the brand is still there, it may not have this pull that you can associate. So I think it is probably coming from someone who has a legacy brand and whose sales has gone down over a period of time. So it essentially happens because sometimes people do not get that associations correct. So in a sense that you are previously at certain associations, you still recognize the brand, but you don't want to carry on with this. That's a very classic example of that was Kodak. Kodak films, right? So that was a kind of completely, some people say that Kodak make only money by suing others. So there is no other business that Kodak is in. So at one point in time, I still remember that Kodak used to be like the film that you want to use if you want to have a photograph. The company completely went out of business. Does the brand value remains? Yes. If you want to buy Kodak, the company, you will be charged for the brand. And so therefore it is possible. But in general, one would assume that you are sufficiently invested in your product as well as in the brand, so that both of them can go hand in hand. Otherwise, it's kind of sometimes become challenge.
Thank you, sir. Now, my question to you, sir, is Professor Bora. You were talking about engaging consumer in the process of manufacturing. So being Indian economy, mostly SMEs companies are in large number. And the sense of ownership is very hard to leave. So they put their own
Oh,
pictures.
actually,
So
I
when
I
do you
recently
see
did it.
that
No,
transformation?
I recently did it with one SME. Actually, SMEs are much easier. One would argue, and primarily because of this, because they do not have conventional budgets that large companies have. So large companies will never allow you to do even remotely to do this kind of a work. But with SMEs, you can. So, for example, when ma'am was showing that, when she was showing the village women and all, right? So that becomes a source, and you don't need to engage every customer. You need to identify who are those critical customers who, when they talk, people listen. So, in a sense, that you will always find among your target group, among your customer segment, there are people who are conventionally, at least in marketing terms, they call them influencers. But people, when they share photographs, they get like 2,000 likes, right? Those kind of people, and then 1,000 shares. So those are the people you need, because those are the people, if they start sharing about the brand, that gets viral very quickly. And that virality quotient you can kind of cash on. It also gives you an idea, and it also gives you a chance to engage with your customer base, broader customer base. And once the consumers are engaged in the process of co-creation, as I say, what happens because of that, they are the one who become your brand ambassadors. So you talk about ceramic, the companies like Ford, right, have done it for cars. So there are multiple examples. Of course, it requires a little bit more investment in your customer group to identify those people. Who are those people when they talk about design? People listen. Who are those people when they talk about design? People share. So you have to identify them. And in general, I prefer that you do it in your consumer segment rather than finding a more professional influencer to associate.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your perspective. May I now ask a question to Mr. Thakur? Sir, when I get into the company planning process, why not this branding PR mostly is not part of the budget scheme or the value addition which the brand emphasizes? So what is your, take on this, sir? And what is your prescription for the Indian companies?
See, unfortunately for me, one is that, I am the last person you should talk about Indian companies, because out of almost 25, 27 years,
You can talk about the overseas companies practice.
Yeah, so because I've mostly worked in Europe and Far East, and only one Indian company, and that was Tata's. So they obviously have their budget. Tata's have the budget for everything. I used to work with a company which I'm sure everybody must be aware of. So I used to work for the holding company of that brand. The brand was Zara. Okay, so Zara, the clothing company.
Yeah.
Now, Zara is a company which started in 1975, and they have not ever advertised. But it still is one of the most valuable brands in the mass market fashion. But that is why. It is because they were very clear on what they were trying to achieve. They focused on it, and their shops, their products spoke about who they were. But at the same time, you have an H&M or a Marks and Spencer who advertise a lot, and they actually have an ad budget. So first and foremost, you need to figure out, or as a company, what are you trying to achieve? Your business is about what? Just making a product and selling wherever you can? Or is there a thought process involved behind your business? Because unless that clarity is there, you will be going in all kinds of directions depending on what the market is like. if you look at ceramic industry in India, if I am not wrong, the production came down drastically from 2018 to 2020. Almost, from the graph, it looked like almost a 30–40% decrease.
Yes, sir. Because anti-dumping duty, companies started imposing anti-dumping duty.
Yeah, no, your Middle Eastern, countries started imposing anti-dumping duties. Did China's production drop? Because they imposed on China also.
Oh,
So why did China not drop its production and India dropped? We need to kind of do some basic thinking about who we are as an industry or a company and what were we trying to achieve. So once you have a clarity there, then because if Chinese can find new customers, I find it very hard to believe that Indian companies cannot find new customers. What would be the reason why Indian companies cannot find new customers? Whether locally, okay, real estate market is down, so tiles obviously is going to be a challenge trying to make more tiles, because if people are not buying homes, buildings are not getting built, then you can't sell tiles. But that means you don't have any contingency plan. That you need to have, like, when you do investment, you have a balanced portfolio. So as a company, you need to have a balanced portfolio of your customers. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. So you need to have a good mix of domestic and international customers, and international customers also from different places, so that if one market is down, another market is, not down. Kajaria makes so many tiles. If they were dependent on just one market, it would be very, very difficult for them to kind of grow. So I think the advertisements or, PR or any kind of promotion you want to do, or any kind of strategy you want to adopt, you have to be very clear in your own head that, okay, I want to grow by X%. Now, to grow by X%, what do I need to do? Plus, people were talking about the Mobi cluster. It is using a lot of artisans are involved, but what has the local organization done for, let's say, technology upgrade, productivity increase, things like that? Everybody talks about cost. Cost is not about just paying the wages or the raw material cost. Your cost can be, even if, for an example, India is a country which is one of the largest manufacturers of semi-finished leather. Same leather is exported to China. It is finished, shoes are made, and they cost cheaper than India. How is it that possible? Wage-wise also, if you just went per hour wage rate, China has a higher wage rate. But their per unit cost of the product is cheaper than India. How is that possible? So we really need to kind of have a proper think and introspect that how we can upgrade our own manufacturing systems. Because if we do not do that, we would be always fighting with one hand tied on our backs. So those kind of clarity. Somebody wrote a question which I already answered about why should we not be looking at mass market? Of course we should be. Everybody cannot make a super duper brand. But if you have just one or two good brands which is internationally recognized, then the country of origin perception becomes so much better that when you go for mass market, people recognize that this is a country where good products are made.
Absolutely.
Some of you may not even remember, or probably were not even born then. Japan was considered a cheap country of origin. Not so long time back. In 60s and early 70s, Japan was what was known about China now or maybe a few years back, a cheap country of origin. Today, suddenly, if it is a Sony, we don't expect it to be cheap. So it takes a little time for the perceptions to kind of become better, but it only becomes better if we all work on it together. I'm not saying that each company needs to talk to each other and but if your focus, your aim, your clarity in your own business model is such that you want to upgrade yourself, then only as a country of origin you will upgrade yourself.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Thakur. I'll come back to you. The next question is on the PR industry, and the person is asking, can PR be done at affordable cost for a small and medium ceramic tiles manufacturer? Can give most economic and effective solutions or agency that can do some result over period. So this I will request Pallavi to answer, and I know many a times this PR and advertising is also confused and interchangeably used by the companies. Most of the smaller companies do not know. So if you can, elaborate on the entire thing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Samir. Thanks, Hiren, I think, for the question. So, how affordably we can do it? It is definitely cheaper than any advertising exercise. So I'll just give you an example. If we go for any ad in a newspaper or or a hoarding, the PR exercise comes to just about 1/3 of the entire cost, and it gives you multiple impressions, right? Which actually builds your visibility. When we are talking about how it's going to be value or effective solution, like Mr. Thakur also said, it's very important to be clear in how we are. How we are, what is the vision that we are establishing for ourselves, how we are going to grow in next maybe 2 years time, 3 years time, because when we go to any media platform, all the platforms are mass oriented. Everybody wants to know what exactly we are doing, what is our expertise, how much we are spending currently, and where we tend to reach in next 2 years of time or 3 years of time, and what is the kind of impact that we are making. So any business, if we are able to promote it like a social good business, it yields good results. We in PR, we have to really craft messages from that socio-economic perspective. That's very important. We need to understand what a company's USP is all about, the unique selling point. Or if it is not there, we will need to really create that. That's very important. Company could be 10 years old, so it must have had a lot of milestones which have never been talked about. They can be talked about, so there could be a history to it, but history needs to be talked about. I'll just give you an example of this company called dunnhumby. It is a Tesco's arm here in India for talent management. So dunnhumby is a it actually has got a lot of data scientists, and most of them most of them are from India only. So 60% of the work is being done here in India. for this particular retail chain, especially when it comes to data analytics and all. So this company was really not known. I mean, nobody knew. In fact, I also didn't know that what this company is, although despite it being an arm of Tesco, a biggest retail chain based out of UK. So it is not that, a big company will have its name. Always, we have to blow our own trumpet, and we need to create messages. So creating messages is definitely very important. Along with what we are doing, we need to showcase our credibility to our own dream and vision also. So, okay, now if we talk about any MSME or any small startup which has started something and now they want to have kind of visibility, it's definitely, always advisable that we achieve something before talking big about ourselves. So once we have something in hand, we can always go forward, because people are smart these days. Digital world lets them know that what we are doing. So, and yeah, of course social media is there. So if we are not really so known, but we have some milestones attached, we can definitely now look at PR as one of the most effective and cheapest mediums for establishing visibility. Not really that we will be talking about our achievements every time, because we will not have many, but definitely we can always establish our thought leadership, because we belong to a particular industry. We can talk about the industry, where the industry is heading towards. So here we actually bring in our intellectual capital, which is very important. So this really relates to building our thought leadership. So when the thought leadership is there, our customers also know that this company is someone, which is actually being driven by brains. So that's there. And we can also, participate in a lot of industry activities. It's very important that we have our share of voice. So for instance, I was Googling what is happening in ceramic industry and in news, there was, I think Mint had done a story on Khurja cluster, where people actually went, they had no money even for the medicines and all, and salaries were not given. So how, another person from the same industry comes and talks about the challenges and what could have been done in terms of solutions. So here, we are actually establishing ourselves as a person who understands the industry, who knows the challenges, who knows the solutions, and who really wants to bring in a social impact. I hope I have been able to, clear your query and made myself clear. Thank you so much.
Pallavi, you have to wait for a while, because the next question also is for you only.
Okay.
Is it necessary to go for PR in isolation, or we need to implement it on a continuous basis at organization level?
So it is always advisable to have PR done on sustained basis. We can have PR just for one activity. Okay, I have some announcement I want to release. I want to do a press release. So just, do this for us. So press release will be done, and, just for a month, maybe we will be somewhere there on Google News and all. But after that, what next? So maybe after 6 or 8 months, again, we have something and we come back. So see, it's like how we are building our relations with our end customers. We need to talk about our story on regular basis. Media needs to know us that, yes, we are there in the picture, we are progressing. So to showcase our progress, it's important that we stay. So maybe we can have a small budget, we can bifurcate it, over a period of time. So I always advise, that we go at least for a 6-month one, rather than, having just one of the activity.
Thank you so much, Pallavi. Professor Bora, how important is the content for branding and not designing, for the branding part?
Oh, it's very important. So no denying that. I think that clearly the content is. You want to have good content, but you do not want to be seen as having too much control over the content. So the entire idea of a user-generated content that you want to kind of create, and once user to talk about you, it should not look like that, you have too much control over the content. So there is this entire idea of whether your message, you want your message to go viral, and so that people want to look at it. In that case, it should be seen as more spontaneous rather than too much of a control. So I think most of the organizations kind of struggle because the conventional way of doing advertising or brand building was, I say a certain way I should look, and this is the way I look, and you will kind of appreciate me or not appreciate me, but this is what I want to see. But over a period of time with UGC, the problem is that consumers may come up with all these different kind of connotations. So you need to have control, but not too much of a control. So if there is too much of a control, then there is a problem. So in terms of content, yes, it is important, but it should look spontaneous, or it should be spontaneously generated.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Thakur, my concluding question to you is, I mean, I have two questions. One is, you said that we had a legacious history in terms of pottery and other things, which we could not capitalize as an industry, and we could not leverage as exports proceeds. So why did it happen? If you can throw light on it and any lesson from it. And second, there are many brands which do not have money for branding exercise because they don't conclude initially in the budget. Their entire focus is on creating on the manufacturing aspect of brand. So how to go about it? And Mr. Bora can also answer either of the questions. So first, Mr. Thakur.
Right. You know, Mr. Push, and I don't need to explain this to anybody here. India, obviously as a civilization, we've been around for a very, very long time. But given all that has transpired in the last, say, 1,000 years, but more than 1,000 years, the last, let's say, 200, 250 odd years, we've not been in a position to either support or even help people who practice these arts. Now, a lot of these is, you see, it'll be a direct function of our state of development, because you can only help if you have the resources. So let's say during colonial times, the economy was much more based on extraction. So the colonizers just took whatever they could without even thinking about giving anything in return. When we got our independence, we were not resource rich. We were resource poor. So then we start from the basic needs, which is food, where we had tough time. So as we are talking about pottery today, or ceramics, or artisans, is because we are in a position, if not a lot, but at least to some extent, help. We talk about clusters, because we are in a position now that through government policies, as well as through industry organizations, we can help. Whereas, you know, it is very simple. I give you a very simple example. 1983, this country won a World Cup. BCCI did not have money to pay. So Ms. Mangeshkar did as the story everybody knows, right? But today, because BCCI for over last, whatever, 15, 20 years, has seen what it can do and create world's biggest market. So now it is resource rich. So it can actually help even people who retired 30 years back, 40 years back. So first and foremost is that our state of development definitely helps us in looking at these issues. Just like Ms. Pallavi just mentioned, One, you have a cluster in Mobi, and one you have a cluster in Khurja. Poles apart. One is facing starvation, another is trying to figure out how to increase business. So obviously the government policies, country of origin, I think the government of India has some policy regarding origin, where you get some kind of token where it says, okay, this, I think there was a big case on Rasgulla, which is actually Orissa versus West Bengal.
For branding, sir, GI and
Yeah, the GI tag.
Yeah,
the GI
very,
tag,
very
right?
important. Yes. To command a premium price, GI branding IP, it helps.
So first and foremost, you need to get this right within your own borders, because once you have a base, then you can start building internationally. Because then you, as a country, you rise. Whereas otherwise it is individual effort. And individual efforts can only carry the whole thing up to a point. But it has to be an industry effort backed by good government policies. Where I just answered somebody, and I explained also, because if one or two or three good brands develop, it just uplifts the entire perception of what the country is, rather than, you know, everybody is into mass market and competing just on cost. If you're competing just on cost, then we know all kinds of shenanigans that go on, especially in SMEs, which are not exactly governed in the same way, though, you know, corporate also, you know, the corporate practices, especially in manufacturing, I'm not sure how good or bad they are, because some are really good and some are really bad. So there is an inconsistency there. But SMEs or MSMEs, we cannot say with complete guarantee that our manufacturing systems and rules and regulations are being followed to the T. So that is where we need to really push in terms of structures. But as businesses, you need to also reduce a lot of regulation which inhibit innovation, which inhibit people from, you know, as we all know, our labor laws are, I don't know from when, and we've not been able to do much about that also. So the industry, the policymakers need to sit together and figure out what is good for all stakeholders. Otherwise, it is not going to work in the long run. It will remain the way it is.
Right. Mr. Bora?
Yes.
Sir, just wanted to your perspective on the smaller companies. Their entire focus is on creating the manufacturing prowess for the brand, and somehow the brand thing misses the connect. So, what is your suggestion to them?
See, it is true that they are not very keen on getting involved in the branding or advertising or even digital campaigns. So that's definitely true. But the only question that, you know, one needs to ask as an organization that, you know, what kind of competition that we want to have. Do we want to compete on cost? And as I already mentioned, then you compete with China, and then that's a tough competition to be in. If you can do a small branding exercise, digital campaigns are the easiest among all what you have, because the cost is not very high. So you are already having a website. I'm just asking you to build a website which is user focused rather than manufacturer focused. You already have a Facebook page. It is not that they don't have a Facebook page, they do. But I'm talking about the content that you put in the Facebook page should be different than what you put up in Twitter, right? So it's not that you are not doing it. You are doing it at some level, you are doing it. But the point is that you are not doing it very systematically. And that because you are not thinking about it. So therefore, what is easiest to be done before you kind of go forward? I think there has to be a marketing function within the organization. So there is somebody, for example, you make somebody responsible for cost, right? the operations guy. If the cost goes up or down, he or she is responsible for it. Is there a person who is responsible for your marketing and engagement related stories? So if you put up something, what is the engagement? And of course, you can tie it up to your premium that you command in the market. You can tie it up to the level of queries that you have got. You can also tie it up to kind of, kind of conversions that you have. So two things. Number one is to have a marketing function, and number two, have tangible matrices to measure the impact of marketing. I think both are missing in most of the cases. That's why sometimes marketing just looks like, an exercise which is kind of isolated from the rest of the organization or organizational function. I think that's one of the major places where it requires a little bit of investment.
I completely agree with you, Professor Bora. Most of the time, for many of the company, marketing is not very intrinsically linked to the manufacturing and the other business functions. So time is to assimilate and change in approach, like Mr. Bora said. You can change the approach and the way you write content, the way you approach the content. Even you are already doing it, just changing the approach can make a lot of difference, because it will appear in a different manner to the audience. One more question has come. Can brand tone help brand grow?
Yeah, I read that question. I couldn't understand what the person is trying to ask. Brand tone. What does brand tone stand for?
Tonality in terms of content or design, I don't know. I mean, all of you can attempt. He might get some Ma'am Anuj.
Brand. Before I get onto brand tone, Professor Bora actually explained it very well. Just like Ms. Pallavi was trying to explain, different, advertisement and PR get mixed up. So does marketing and sales. Most companies are not able to differentiate between what is marketing and what is sales. They are two completely different functions. And the earlier one understands it, better one can get. Now, coming to brand tone, from just literally, it would mean what does the brand sound like, or looks like, or feel like? Okay, that is what I can understand from that. Now, I keep on, repeating myself all the time. There was a previous question regarding brand and product, and this is now brand. Again, for me, the biggest thing is, if whatever you want to do, if all of the variables are not consistent with each other, it does not work. Your product, when you look at the product, it says something, your message says something else. And when they talk to you, you say something else. It just will not work. If you want to build a brand which is growing, which has got a lot of traction, all those things can only happen when you have such a consistency in your narrative of who you are, what you're trying to sell to me, and how does it help. You don't get that right, you will have serious problems. So brand tone, whatever the author wants to say, just please remember, just having a brand and product which does not match what brand is trying to convey, again, to me, it does not work in the long run.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Anuj Pawar, my final question to you, ma'am, is, do you see any skill shortage in this area of ceramics in coming time, or is it sufficient people are unemployed? What is the scenario? You are already working with women group and other.
I didn't get your answers. Like, can you repeat it?
Ma'am, I was trying to ask skill-wise, do you see, I mean, oversupply of the people and demand is less, or demand is more and the skilled people are less in the sector?
I think there are number of skilled people are there, but there's a need of more refinement into the skills and focusing on a particular production or particular unit. That is more needed, and I guess need is there, and we have a work power, we have artisans to work, but there I think they need to be trained to be a super skills or a finer skills to get a better production. That's what I feel.
Right, ma'am. And any expectation from the government, which I mean, these artisans, I know
Like
there
there
are
are
list
yeah
of
there are
demand.
number of schemes are there, and there are a lot of projects and NID is doing with the craft clusters. Even in past, like there are few projects have done in Morbi clusters also. There are few projects have done in NID. So there's a constant trials and errors are going on. So it is still in the process, but I think it's still needed more. Because earlier, Mobi clusters were into the variety of a product. They were into tableware, they were into toy making, they were into then lately now they are mostly in a tile industry or in a sanitary wares. So these
Correct.
this two industries are constant over there. So the small clusters people are they have not got enough market or not enough mileage. So that's how the small clusters have suffered, and now they have also moved to the industry of textiles or other industries which is available over in that clusters. So there were still constant trials are going on, new projects are coming, new trainings are going on to
Correct,
help
ma'am.
the new clusters.
So before I forget, I will request whatever presentation you have shown, as a practice, we email it to all the attendees. So even if it is 2 pages, 5 pages, doesn't matter. Please email it to me after the presentation.
Okay.
The same which you have shown,
Okay, fine.
so that it matches and somebody wants to re-listen it or revise it.
Sure.
My concluding question to Pallavi is, during the time of crisis like COVID and other, which you have already seen it passing through, and like the war is awaiting in Ukraine, the entire business ecosystem goes for a toss. I mean, I am already getting the phone calls of exporters that what will be the freight charges and other things. So in this topsy-turvy environment, how do you see the PR role, whether your client base increases, decreases, or what kind of challenges you face? And what is your final suggestion to the brands?
So I think challenges we all have had faced during the COVID period, and more and more challenges will keep on emerging also. The idea is to find opportunities in challenges. That's very important. And I mean, if I talk about my own self, I was one of those female entrepreneurs who started this PR agency during COVID itself. So opportunities. I mean, if we really want to seek opportunities, they are there. I would say when you are talking about small business houses who actually say that, sorry, we don't have budget and all. I mean, I don't have anything to say to them, because PR doesn't really cost much. It is all about sustaining your visibility if you want to. Excuses could be many, and when the challenges are there, I think it is a time to really make a mark.
Correct.
So if we see brands like Netflix, I would say that they were already known amongst people, but how they actually drove their entire PR campaign during this COVID time, when they really wanted people to stay at home to watch Netflix. They were not really talking about what are the shows which are what are the movies which are going to be released and all. Rather, they were talking about how they should be staying safe at home.
Correct. That is what Professor Bora was hinting at.
So
that-
we need to really see, I mean, like, yeah, Professor Bora, Mr. Thakur were talking about, we need to really see, what, comes best at what time, what kind of content we need to create and at what platform.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, everybody. It was a wonderful session, learning for all of us, and hope the industry people, and it was live on the YouTube as well. So I'll keep posting you updates about the webinar, and if I get any further question, till that time, you please email your PPTs to me so that it reaches to the industry person. Thank you so much for your presence and time, gentlemen, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samirji. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.